Westchester University.
I think they started it for us. They
Set
didn't do it in time.
down at the
Farrell State. You're in charge. Nope, nope, you're in charge.
somewhere at Farrell Stage.
Yeah, that bad.
This is mine.
And I was talking to a girl named Julie Dietrich, who's one of the liaisons.
Yes.
And I said, there's lots of PSAC schools that are in boroughs. Towns a borough. I think Bloomsburg's is the only one that's an incorporated. town.
You didn't go into this last even one, right?
Well, no, if you go over all the way to
Bloomsburg is a
the,
borough.
on the right, all the way to
I
the,
said,
yeah, you're gonna be far down
Popularity of
to,
Westchester
well,
has a
well,
lot to do with
and then they'll have
Westchester.
definition. I just got you into ours.
That Westchester borough should have some say, some influence. What's happening?
Can you guys hear me okay?
University.
Yeah.
Because of.
I want to share the screen while passing.
that.
Okay.
Makes sense.
So stop.
I understand, Borough.
We were going to do this, Bill, but you beat us to it.
I don't trust you, Aaron.
Borough
I know.
Students.
I know.
Up here, see, Aaron, look,
Significantly higher here. than
Yes.
right up here.
Yes,
Yeah,
Bill.
you hit that.
Shippensburg,
Yes.
Yes.
Millersville. or-
Yeah. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes. What have you done?
Nothing.
To earn such?
Okay, you guys are good to go, and it's recording.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Take care.
All right. We'll be called.
I don't impress
They're
Bill.
up there, they're going up now.
There's nothing about
You
these.
gotta walk up down. Yeah, I grew up down in that part of Rosedale Avenue, and yeah, you had to walk up there.
That's such a cool guy. Are we gonna need more chairs? Okay.
Hi, Nicole. Better heard that voice.
Okay.
I had all this saved for you guys.
We'll get there. Sorry, we're. You gotta let us earn it, Bill.
You know,
Hello. Someday we'll earn this rest.
I mean, yeah, I'll take notes, but no minutes required. Minutes and do a vote. I'm ready, but yeah, absolutely.
Okay, welcome, everybody. Today is September 23rd. This is a working session for the Westchester Borough Planning Commission. Today we have Alan Burke, Steve Mitten, Quincy Borough, Matt Clapp, and I'm Jim Cherry. Aaron Fluke is here as well as Director of Filming. Let's see, it's on that agenda there. Reports. Are there any citizen comments on items not on the agenda? All right, reports.
Real briefly for me, in front of you, we'll see this report. It is the staff report that goes over what has happened in the zoning hearing board. There were 3 proposed, items for October 20, for September 22nd. One was at 532 Marshall, and I think that's Drive, not street, but they still continue to put that on there that way. I apologize. Which was withdrawn. This was where they were gonna put a garage and a driveway in that would be seriously impacting the side setback. They have determined to withdraw it to seek a better way of installing it without seriously impacting the dimensional requirements. 536 North Church Street. This is a proposed subdivision that will have two separate lots created from one where there is a 6 dwelling unit. They're going to put a single family home on the other one. And the issues there are on the side and rear setbacks for the 6 dwelling unit lot and on the minimum lot size for the single individual unit. That has been continued until next month on October 27th at the request of the lawyer representing it. Then last night also, we did hear 210, 214 West Washington Street, the Axel Square properties. Good news that they did get their variance to allow for the increase in the building coverage to 45.5%. The only condition that was put on was that they did ask them to review and see if there is any way to capture more of the uncontrolled stormwater into the stormwater management that's already on site. They said that they would be willing to do that. And they'll do everything that is feasible and within their ability to do so. And that's the way the motion was written. So it was a very amicable result and everybody was pretty pleased. That'll actually reduce the lot coverage or the building coverage by 43% from what it is right now. Even though it's still over, it's still going to be a big improvement. October 27th, we have two proposed zoning hearing board applications received. One is what is again the continuance from this month's at 436 North Church, which I already explained. And the other one will be at 740 South Matlack Street. This is a situation that actually did spur a change in an ordinance that we are doing in this regards, whether or not we always have to have curbing in the alleyways, if there are reasons and positions to deal with this. Unfortunately, they have to get a variance. The variance does require that all streets where you have 3 or more parking spaces, that the parking space be separated from all streets by a 6-inch concrete curb or appropriately designed curb per section 97. However, and in the definition of a street, alley is one of the names that is used. So alleys fall under streets, are considered streets. So the idea here is that they are looking to be honest with you, Public Works does not want to put it in this alley because it's too small and it will damage the snowplow equipment and other equipment. But there's nothing in the zoning that allows us to get around it. So they're looking for a variance right now. And we have also brought some, an amendment to change that to where the zoning officer will have the ability upon request from the police, the fire, emergency services, or Public Works to waive that requirement if it poses danger to inhabitants, accessibility, equipment. I'm probably missing a few things in that because I'm just doing it off the top of my head. But basically, unfortunately, they can't wait to see that get through, so they're going to get a variance, going for a variance on this one. And that's what's being done in the zoning hearing board. The next thing we have is a presentation by Mikey Clements, excuse me, I apologize. She's an intern that is working with us and she did a wonderful study for us as part of her internship that deals with what we have accomplished and how our comprehensive plan is looking right now and some of the keys to what we should be looking for into the next comprehensive plan. So if you can go back to the agenda, it has a link there for her presentation, and then she'll just steal the mouse from me.
It's all yours.
This is all you, please pay attention. This is Mikey, and thank you very much.
Hi, I am Michael Clements. I am a senior at Westchester University, pursuing my bachelor's in urban and environmental planning.
Thank you.
And I've been with the borough for about 3 months now. I started in June, so I'm really excited to be here. And over the summer, I did a review of the recommended actions of the 2016 comprehensive plan. So tonight I'm going to be sharing my presentation that looks back on the recommended actions of that plan, as well as the different types of funding that was used to see those actions to completion. We're doing this not only to celebrate the achievements of the borough over the past 10 years, but to analyze which recommended actions we would like to carry forward into our next plan, as that is coming up shortly. So to do this, I first analyzed the actions the plan set out, and then I categorized them by their completion status. So that was completed, partially completed, or not started. They were then further broken down by location and the amount and type of money that was used to see them through. And then I put this information into a publicly accessible story map, so everyone will be able to view this after this meeting. So that's going to be sharing for you tonight. Start out with the introduction. It's just a brief explanation of the comprehensive plan and the urban center revitalization plan. The assistance we received from Chester County as part of their county's vision partnership program to create this document. And it just sort of explains what a comprehensive plan is and how it helps guide planning decisions in the borough. So to get those actions started that it recommended and the different tasks we completed within this plan, it broke them out into 5 focus areas, and these are just areas of priority planning where the borough wanted to put their focus on. So that was community and economic vitality, environmental sustainability, the preservation of the borough's historic character, future enhancement areas, and Westchester University. So with those focus areas came a series of recommendations in order to support, uplift those areas. And they listed, whatever, everything we want to do. So, sorry.
Comprehensive.
A little nervous. Yeah, comprehensive. Thank you. So I broke them down, as I said, by status. So here we can see that 71, about 59% were not started. 29 or 24% were fully completed, and 19 actions or 16% were partially completed. Now, I do have to say, adding the completed and partially completed together, that's 40% of the completed actions, which is absolutely outstanding for a municipality. I mean, it's impressive if you see them get to 25%. But that does leave 60% uncompleted. So I'd ask the question, why did they not get completed? And what actions would we like to focus on for the next plan? So I then mapped all of these awesome items out. You can see here, it lists each action and then it breaks them down by cost, location. For example, we have this guy here. So an action listed was continue to support the committee to restore rail service. You can see that it's priority, all the different type of information, the type of funding we use to get it, how much funding we acquired. No, it's just basic information about the action that was taken, or excuse me, the work that was done to support that action. And then some of them have cool little pictures you can see here. All right, so then I highlighted some of the actions that seemed most important to the borough, things that were done relatively quickly or ongoing projects to support them. So the biggest one had to be upgrading aging stormwater systems. Huge number of improvements made. I mean, we did over 20 projects since the adoption of this plan. But yeah, some of those projects included the rain gardens we've been doing, the Taylor Run stream restoration, the construction of the public works BMPs. And as you can see, this might be something we want to carry on. I mean, we still have ongoing projects that are constantly need to support stormwater management. It's always going to be something that's a little unfinished. You're always going to need to be upgrading, continue on, things like this. So the other highlighted actions, this is a fun one, the conversion of the Gay Street into the open air market. Again, another ongoing project, something I feel the borough has been really passionate about and really invested in improving upon. We have the conversion of the Armory into Uptown North Performing Arts Center, which we were able to complete with the support of the Keystone Community Grant. And finally, we have the implementation of the stream protection program, which was an interesting action because it in turn supported other actions like the upgrade of the stormwater management facilities, which most likely would not have been possible without funding from this project. Also, there's information like links in here if anybody were to view and want to learn a little bit more about the stream protection fees right there. So then I created a dashboard that viewers can go and see each project broken down by ward. For example, if you were interested in seeing what happened in the first ward, you can see $101.7 million were spent here. 1.3 million came from grants, funding from ARPA, the borough in general. You can also break it down by quad. And there are also borough-wide projects, things that just support the whole borough. So sometimes it's an ordinance change, sometimes it's an overhaul in how we do things. Pretty cool stuff.
Mhm.
And this is the fun part, the funding and the spending. So in the funding section for viewers, I just kind of broke down the different areas that the borough acquired funding. Top three were grants. Obviously absolutely vital. I mean, you'll see later on, the huge majority of these projects were funded by grants, and many of the wonderful works the borough has done not have been possible without this. We also had ARPA, the American Rescue Plan Act, in 2021. It gave money to promised money to cities, towns, and villages in the US. Chester County approximately received about 102 million. The borough received about 2 million. And then borough funds, just short explanation, how we get them, what they are, a little bit about the budget we go through every year. Okay, spending. Now, I broke down the spending for the borough by each project by its source. So the average cost per ward and the average cost per quad. And it also shows the spending by source. So I'm just gonna pop out of this, show you guys a little bit better picture. All right, there we go. So as you can see, grant funding the blue. That is 59.13% of all projects funded in the borough, $7.8 million. It's just to speak how important it was in the implementation of everything. If you want to play around with this, again, you can break it down by quad and then further by ward. You can click on specific projects and see how much they cost. Example. There we go, like the conversion of Gay Street. Tell you a little about it, tell you responsible parties, where it took place, the specific grants that were used to get there, all that good stuff. Right, and then we just conclude a little bit of a revision of everything that goes down. Explaining again the importance of grant funding. And I'm really just offering this to you tonight and hope that it may help you decide how you want to spend funding in the future across the borough and what different actions you want to move forward with.
Very good.
Terrific.
Well, are there any questions you guys have for Mikey?
Very well done.
Where's this gonna be available? On the borough website?
Yes, so this is through AGOL. It's just a link. Anyone can see it publicly accessible right now, but I'm sure we can get Bill to post that for us.
We are gonna get that taken care of. We just have to get Nick to come back and approve and make sure that everything's supposed to be done the right way. He's out on paternity leave right now. I do want to say that Mike, you spent a great deal of time analyzing this. And the big thing that it really shows is we did a great job. We did a great job of fundraising through grants. They always require matching funds from the borough and from other sources. Almost always, any type of grant we're gonna get is gonna have some sort, matching fund to it. But and it does show the correlation is how much we got done and how much we couldn't get done simply because the fundraising wasn't there. So part of what we're gonna be starting in next year is starting to ramp up and get ready for the new comprehensive plan update. And I thought that one of the best ways for us to start is to take a cue off of what Mikey did here and see some of the things that weren't done, see the things that were done, how we did them, and just, on your own time, get some thoughts in your heads as to how you would, what you would like to see retained into the new plan, maybe get higher priority or things that may have shifted priority because of different things coming up. So it's a good tool for you to get a step up and a step ahead of what's going on.
So here's a question. So one of the reasons that we did not accomplish some of the things that we wanted to is that it required a grant. And the position of the borough personnel at the time was we were already submitting for a grant and we should not be trying to submit for two at the same time. It would reduce the opportunity on both sides. So I guess number one, I want to know, do you agree that that's a legitimate reason to?
It can if you are putting it into the same source or you're pulling off the same kitty. There's a whole bunch of different grants out there. There's CBD, I can't say it. The CDBG grants, there's other types of grants that are out there. It is, if you put I'm not a grant specialist, but I do know that if you put too many out into one area at one time, that it is going to hurt you in getting them back because they don't want to be seen as if they're going to be favoring one municipality over another.
So maybe we should build that into the next comprehensive plan. We have things that we really want to do, but don't plan to do them because there's not the will on the part of, or it's seen as unwise to pursue too many of these things at the same time.
You do have to keep in mind that these grants usually circulate each year, so you may want to stagger individual, like prioritize you and say, okay, we're going to do these ones in this year, maybe these ones in this year, or come up with a plan moving
Yeah.
forward. But like I said, right now, we're not to that point, and the whole purpose of this, and then when I saw this, I was like, oh, I gotta get this in front of the planning commission immediately. Because this is stuff that is just needed information for you guys to start thinking
Yeah.
and getting your mind straight, maybe take some notes and set them aside for when we get really charged up to go into the meat grinder that's going to be comprehensive plan.
Is there an ability to download the source data for these story maps? Like so that we can
It is,
filter and sort spreadsheets with that data?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the first map you saw has all of that data in there. They'll be able to do that. Again, it's just a matter of, so they can get back to make sure I share that with you guys the right way. You have access to everything.
Okay.
But yeah,
one of
all the applications in there, they're also separate products, so you can view them, from the Borough website. as
You can
well.
actually go in and pull up individual things.
Right, but seeing them, all those, whether it's the cost, filtering, sorting by cost, those that were completed, partially completed, not complete, the ability to filter, sort the data to see what has happened, what were priorities before, what we want to carry through. I love story maps. I love looking at these and that gives great context. But to make decisions going forward, we're going to need to be able to rack and stack all the unfinished work. And then make decisions based on that. So it's a great start. Well, not even a start, it's a great product. But I think there's more we can do with it. So I think that's great.
I'm sure there's a way that we can get that if this doesn't do it, we'll get that for you.
Okay.
That'll be a great tool.
Any other questions?
What struck you as something that we haven't started yet, that you would think, oh, it would be great if these guys would take their look and prioritize it, that you think that the borough would benefit from if we get started?
I mean, I can't say anything particular jumped out at me. All of the projects I saw that were completed or partially completed, I felt like that was representative of what I was seeing in the borough. I was happy with it. To be honest, I think the biggest shock to me was there were some items that weren't completed that I was a little confused why they were in the comprehensive plan. They might have just seemed like a little bit of out of scope of the borough or,
Well, what were they?
there was, not to cherry pick, there was a lot of talk about the Westchester Golf Course, and I'm sure that was probably a hot topic item at the time. But I don't believe, I haven't ever been concerned in my time in the borough. I haven't heard anyone else who was concerned. I've been here for about 5 years, so, that was just interesting to see.
But I can give you a little history on that.
No, no.
We have a lot to get through today.
It is 9 holes, right? So, they wanted to expand it to across the street to have 18 holes, and then also, like Bradley Run and some of the other area, the homes are built on golf course. There was a shared golf course holes and home space. So, I mean, I'd have to go back and read if that was kind of the conversation that was in there, but I know that from growing up, that was a big thing, that they at one point wanted to expand it out instead of playing 9 holes twice, build it out into a bigger than I think.
Well, that's one of the reasons. I mean, the other reason at the time, golf is kind of a dying sport, and there was this fear that the land was so valuable, it could become Levittown tomorrow, and did we want that? And the only thing that stood in its way is action that the borough would take, which we never did.
Invest in them. Don't sell it,
Okay, so
We're controversial.
Mikey, thank you very much. Appreciate it. And then, are you going to be around for a while at the borough?
I am.
Okay, very good. We're going to want to tap you. Maybe you can attend a couple more of these meetings or meetings. By the way, a spot has opened up on the planning commission if you were interested.
Subtle. She currently is employed with the borough.
Ah.
Yeah.
Not be a part of the committee. And we're keeping her, you're not getting her.
Very good. Our pay is not as good. So.
Not much worse.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Appreciate the work. So, on the old business, we had the, just as a starting point, Thomas is going to be running late today. He should be, attending, but he's at another event right now. So I'm gonna skip past the preservation ordinance and go to 700 South High Street, which is the, master plan. Where do we go here?
It's in, where's our agenda?
Go.
We're gonna have, there it is, there it is. Should be the first thing.
Okay, and so basically, we had that presentation. We had some comments that we discussed regarding the conditional use plan, the master plan. So it's a kind of a big picture look. And we had decided that we were going to collect comments or anything specific after having had the opportunity to have that presentation, have those questions and answers, review the plan. And Aaron was going to collect and collate those lists. I know Alan had provided some comments. There's no action today, but we're probably going to be moving something forward next week at the voting session. So if there's anything that should or could be discussed relative to that, or can be, did you receive a lot of?
No, I only received one individual's
Okay.
comments. And Alan's from the original one that we had from the last meeting. So I didn't have really much to do. And some of the ones that were similar, I mean, they were all kind of in the similar vein, but there were some that did stick out, but I only received one response that I received a couple that they didn't really have any that were different than what Alan had already put out there. So
Do you want them in writing?
if you could send me an email, I don't need them handwritten, no. I wouldn't do that to you.
Yeah, and if they're new ones, we'll be able to review those.
And I can get that done tomorrow and then send out to everybody so they can review them before the voting session.
The intent is regardless of how the motion or the vote goes, that we'll forward that with a letter to Borough Council. But should include that at least all those comments and conversations for their information and reference. In the least of it, everybody, including the university, will know some of the positions. And
Did we get input from Tom on,
Tom.
No, I didn't have enough to send to Tom, so I did not
Okay.
ask Tom for.
As to-
any this.
is that the right path forward?
Well,
Oh, sorry.
Well, I'm gonna say, I'm sorry about that. Yeah, so, Tom, we have the master plan. I mean, there was some time requests, there were some meetings potentially with Westchester University as well as some of the residents. I'm not sure that whether that's happened or not.
There are later this month, there's one in October, I think October sixth, and I think there's one 29th September. As a matter of fact, if you give me a moment, I'll look it up because
Okay,
I'm in
that'd be great.
bagel and so.
I'm sorry, Darryl.
8 p.m. for Will.
I mean, essentially, the last time Tom was here, he suggested we wait for comments from the townships and the residents before we make our own, and our own comments before we make any further motions or votes. I think, I don't want to mischaracterize what you said.
That's correct.
And then, but last week, or last month, when he wasn't here, there was concern that we had already put out a letter to Borough Council stating a position that we hadn't actually formally voted on. So I wanted to make sure going into next month, after we receive these, is that the right, I guess, once we've received those comments, we've collated our comments, consolidated them, then we're voting on our position relative to the
I
master
think-
plan, is that the right?
Yeah, I think
The right
wait for the township, wait for the
process.
residents, and then if we could have a consult with you again, Tom, relative to that. I'm gonna say my personal opinion is, they give a broad big picture approach, we should give a broad big picture response. So if they're saying, hey, these are some potential things, we have asked for any project that moves forward, every individual project will come forward, anything that's applicable will be reviewed by us. Any land development, any sites and so on. But the buildings within the university's campus are reviewed by the state, Pennsylvania O&I. So we really it's really the edges in that perimeter, especially specific to any land development that we have a say in. So it's so the previous letter was retracted. We're gonna wait, and I guess we don't know of any other worse to take right now, right?
Okay. I just want to make sure.
If memory serves, I believe the borough got a review from TCA and from a traffic engineer. I don't know, did we get a review from Panoni?
We did not.
Did we ask them for a review?
I did not forward one.
Is it the engineering report that we're getting consolidated with what?
Yeah, that's the reason why, what was happening, and thank you for bringing that up. Because this is going on in conjunction with West Goshen and us, we were supposed to go together, pick a independent of both of us engineer to do the review, and we would share the costs of it. So we're waiting for that to be taken care of before we send it to an engineer review. Thank you.
So as a general matter, I don't think that, I think it's appropriate for the planning commission to wait until you have all those reviews so you can see them, and at least as you would normally do, if you make a recommendation to the council, it would be subject to compliance with the review letters.
Sure.
Assuming you
Right.
concur with those reviews, some or all the comments. So I don't know, has a joint engineer been selected?
It's,
I think there has been, but they don't necessarily keep me in the loop on that, but I
we
can,
approved something.
Yeah, there was a meeting.
I can verify it and get back to you and let everybody know.
Yeah, you were at a meeting a couple weeks ago. There was a joint
Yeah, we approved,
executive meeting.
remember who we approved, yeah, point that, we approved how much we would pay for it.
I can
Who it was
verify.
that we approved, I forget.
I can verify tomorrow with Sean and send an email out to everybody on the commission and to you, Tom, to let you know.
Okay, and I guess we also have to watch the time. I know the applicant gave an extension until some time period to commence the hearing. The conditional use hearing, we might need
Yeah, I
another
think
extension. I don't know when it is. I don't know whether you'll have enough time. If a joint engineer hasn't even looked at it yet, thinking that might take a while.
Very good.
Sure. Right. And keep in mind, this is a conditional use. It's not, it's not going to be fully engineered, so some of the engineer's comments would probably be deferred to the individual land development applications.
The responding time. All right, so we'll get the joint review as well as confirm the timeline. Okay, very good. Any other old business? No.
So Jim, just to confirm, you're not gonna vote next week on.
Correct.
Gotcha.
That is correct. Okay. New business. The title as it states is Unified Residential Development Use. So just to be very clear for neighbors, we do have a site plan that was loaded in as an attachment, just to understand. That is not under review. It's actually a proposed ordinance that's under review. We're using that site plan as an example of that type of development. Again, this is in response to the past several years of developments that, again, the comprehensive plan may have encouraged, where they were trying to encourage development and growth within the borough. There was height overlay district added within the town center that encouraged individuals to come in, consolidate lots, and then maximize the potential on those developments. We've had maybe half a dozen of those developments. They've all had very similar pushbacks from the borough standpoint relative to parking, height, mass, traffic, build twos, and so with that, we were trying to address each piece of those and try to get a little more teeth and improve the quality of the existing zoning and SARO ordinances. Along with that, the thought of creating an opportunity to go the other way, to do something that's scaled more consistently with more of the historic development that the borough has taken place over hundreds of years. So the borough has used stormwater management since we talked about that at the zoning hearing board. A lot of buildings and pavement and driveways and development happened. There was no regulation. There were no requirements. So these kinds of things took place. You'll have homes that have rainwater conductors tied into sewer systems. You have a lot of stormwater just dumping into the streets and allowing the streets to sheet flow that stormwater. So these were practices that really weren't understood or as how impactful they were. And not only was it now with stormwater management requirements, a quantitative requirement to control. So all new developments, all of them, post-development, the stormwater should be reduced. So if there's an existing site and a certain amount of water leaves that site, after the development of that property, less water is going to leave that site. So even if there's more water collected, it's going to be retained and eased up. That's what retention basins or detention basins are. They just kind of retain them or ease those waters off at the same rate. All the water in the borough runs west, all the stormwater, it all collects and runs west. That's part of the, when you see the street cleaning and stuff, that's more of the qualitative portion of it as opposed to quantitative. So that's cleaning up and removing the silts and the oils from the streets. So then when that water makes its way over there and dumps into the branding line, that's it's a little bit cleaner as an outfall as much as possible. So all of the sewer runs east, all of the storm runs west, just to be clear, they're very far apart. So, one of the developments there, and specifically the 410 South High Street, was one of the buildings that had been developments that have been proposed, which I'm assuming is most of you are here to review or make comment on. And in response to that, it was the opportunity to find an approach on that site that was more consistent with the balance of the immediate block, the adjacent neighbors that surround that. So not everything's perfect, not everything's written, but I just want to say we're not actually reviewing that development. We're reviewing an ordinance, a new use for the town center that could be used anywhere in that town center. And we're going to be discussing it line by line or going through that. So this is a work session, so I will allow comments back in later. I'd like to have a conversation with us just to get that ordinance rolling. And then whatever comments and questions or concerns that you might have, I'd love to hear them because we want to make sure that we're addressing as we move forward. But this is the first shot at an ordinance. So what I'm saying is this is not an official release of an ordinance and it hasn't been advertised. The neighbors haven't been notified. This is not something where we are right now is suggesting that an ordinance be prepared that allows a smaller scale, slightly different, which is why what this ordinance is drafted upon. So this is the first step. And as we move this forward, make our comments going back and forth, what we'll do is get it into a position fairly quickly to be able to move it forward to Smart Growth, which is Nicole's subcommittee. And then so they'll have their comments. And if they make a recommendation to move it forward to Borough Council, at some point they'll authorize the solicitor to go ahead and draft up a real one. At that time, And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, at that time, there'll be a notification and we'll start the process a little bit tighter. So you'll see what's going on. But just think of this as really a work session, very preliminary on what's going on. So when you see something written down, it's not final. It's certainly open to negotiation and change. It's just, it's kind of dovetails into the preservation ordinance we're working on. So if anyone's not familiar with that, what that one is, it's geared towards trying to encourage quality developments, good design, good materials with some durability and some sustainability so that those buildings last. So when developments come in and they're built, they're not going to last 30 years and start falling apart. They're intended to be a contribution more like the buildings that we see presently. So with that, I think that's enough of a background, but I think we'll start reviewing I should let Tom's ordinance, if you want to. Oh,
Yeah, if I could just add a couple things. This was drafted in an ordinance form, but as Jim indicated, it is meant to really be a format or a starting point for something that we call unified residential development. And the planning commission will have to decide whether the requirements for that are appropriate or not. But I will say that this is based on a sketch plan that we did receive for 410 South High Street. So to some extent, the idea is meant to enable that development if the ordinance is enacted. Now, secondly, included in this draft ordinance is also the change to the build-to line for the town center. Now, which you talked about for months, frankly. And that's already been recommended by the Smart Growth Committee. And perhaps it would be appropriate to separate that out so we don't get bogged down in this other stuff. In other words, draft a separate ordinance for the building line.
yeah.
That was one of my comments.
So I think maybe it makes sense to start out maybe by looking at what's called section 5. And frankly, make sure I got it right.
Okay.
That way. So what you have is a new dimensional chart for the town center. And I think really the only changes are the building setback line / front yard, which is a defined term, would change to 0 feet. Now that defined term says it's the minimum. In other words, it's not required, it's not a build-to line. It's the minimum that it has to be set back, which would be 0 feet. But if you want to include, you'll notice in the rest of the entries, it says minimum or maximum. If you want to add in for belt and suspenders, minimum, that's fine. So the way this is written, the building can be set back 0 feet, but it could be set back 10 feet or 20 feet, could be set back further. Now, the other changes in the side yard, that used to say match existing adjacent, that now says 0 feet. So that's also a minimum. And then we've added 2, I guess, exceptions, which is the first asterisk. It says the building setback line, front yard for buildings, and we could add minimum there also for building structures or parts with the building height over 45 feet permitted in the HO 60 or HO 75 shall be 10 feet. Because that's the information I was given. And also the maximum height, there's a double asterisk indicating that in the HO 60 or HO 75, it can be more than 45 feet.
Okay, just to provide some points of clarification with that, and I have a question regarding that. Are you the build-to line, that recommendation, that's been moved forward with by Smart Growth?
Well, again,
Well, I'm just asking.
Sure.
Yeah, Sure. So that is something, just as a separate, regardless of what's going on with this, that we were requesting go forward. So that should be separate, right? Just
That is
as a-
separate.
Yeah.
Yes, that'll be separate.
That's gonna be a separate one. So just,
But again, the build-to line is a separate concept. In other words, if you
Sure.
use the term build-to line, which is defined in the zoning ordinance, it means the building must be placed on that line.
sure. Well, that's what I wanted to clarify, because what we're requesting is a setback.
Right, and that's
Our
what's
new-
in here.
yeah.
This is a minimum.
Sure,
It's not a build-to line.
sure.
It's a minimum, what I would call a minimum front yard setback. That's
That's what it
typically
is.
what we call it.
100%.
But you have a defined term that says building setback line, front yard. So it would be 0 minimum, but theoretically, it could be 20 feet.
Sure.
I mean, as you have said several times, I
Mhm.
agree, most developers are gonna take 0
Mhm.
if they have a choice.
Mhm.
But
So I'm not sure where the build-to line fits in.
Well, we don't have it doesn't fit in anywhere within either this ordinance or the new, what we're proposing.
Correct.
So what we've basically done is reverted back to the previous zoning, requirements for the town center. The previous requirement was a 0-foot front yard, a 0-foot side yard.
Right.
It was changed to a build-to, which has only added confusion and inconsistencies of the ability of the boroughs to apply evenly across different developments. And so sometimes it's applicable, sometimes it's not applicable. You look at 330 Market Street as an example, and look at nudies, that building's thrown out. So it has less ability to have consistent expectation for the developers.
Yeah.
So reverting back to the previous setback goes to 0-0. Okay, well, I think you had a question. I'm gonna get that while you still have it on your mind. No. Sure. Well, none. The projects and submissions are already in the works, unless those developers wanted to revisit their approach on that development. Sure. So, and I think, again, presently, we're looking at this for the town center, and some of these pieces that we'll be discussing is how and where and when it might be appropriate to use such a, as an example, don't we tear down Carlinos and put up housing? Might be frowned upon. So it depends on how and where. So presently, some of the initial thoughts were where town center hits the neighborhood conservation.
Anyway, you were talking about this change to the side yard and front yard, right? Or are you talking about the unified residential development? Right, so I don't think, yeah. We were just talking about this one section, which I think, I agree, my comment was, let's pull that out of this.
Yeah.
Because it's a separate issue.
Sure.
But I think, I didn't want to get off the
Sure.
rails on
Thanks. Yeah.
residential development before we even get there.
I'll say is almost every one of those developments maxes out right to the right of way, so there would be no real substantive change on that.
So unless there are any comments, what we'll do is take section 5 out, create a separate ordinance and submit it to the county for Act 247 review and advertise it.
My one little comment was to include the word minimum, both in the table after front yard, comma minimum, and then also in the first note for the HO 60 exception is building setback line, front yard minimum for building, just to be consistent with the verbiage.
Understood.
I think the other one. You see this?
And down here too, right there. So it's consistent. That's all I had on that section.
Alan, anything on that section?
Nope.
Steve?
No.
Quinty? Okay, Tom, yeah, I agree that we move that out and do that separate.
Okay, will do. So then the rest of it is, as indicated, is an attempt to create regulations for a new use called unified residential development. So there are two definitions added, and one is alley, because for some reason, alley is only defined in the subdivision ordinance. So we took that word, that definition, put it in the zoning ordinance. The only change is on the first line, the last word is ordinarily. Because we do have, because the Saldo says serving as a secondary means of access. And we know that we have some development in the borough where an alley is the principal means of access. So we inserted the word ordinarily. And then you see the definition of unified residential development. It would be permitted as a use by right in the town center district. And then section 4 is a new section 112-916, which are standards for unified residential development. There's no magic to this. This is where your input is needed. But as I said, the area and bulk regulations came from sort of backing into them from the sketch plan for 410 South High Street. And also, I think my own observation that you might not want to allow this all over the town center. In other words, you wouldn't want someone to tear down Carlino's and build a bunch of houses there. So as Jim said initially, there are minimum gross tract area, maximum gross tract area, and they're meant to provide limitations. And then probably the most significant one is that the tract has to be adjacent to a lot or tract located in NC2, NC3, or CS zoning districts. So they would be, and I don't know whether CS is appropriate or not. There is a very small area that is in the town center adjacent to the the CS. So again, they're really planning issues. The density was based on what was shown on the 410 South High. Subsection 5, the minimum tract width, that's also a limitation. That may be something, in other words, that's sort of designed to say you can't put this everywhere. That it has to be a tract with a certain amount of frontage. Setback lines are, again, consistent with that sketch. It's separate. You can read it for yourselves.
CS is.
So I think, so Jim says, appropriate just to go through and beat it up.
Yeah.
But again, some of this came from our office's own, knowledge of the borough. And as I said, I think it makes sense that this would be all over the town center. You don't want this all over the town center.
Right.
You want it to be adjacent to zoning districts where residential uses are permitted.
Yeah. And this is the parcel, and it's really just, it's surprising it was zone TC. I mean, just relative to the adjacencies, but.
Yeah, I've always thought that Burger King site didn't seem like it should have been in the TC, but that's not my decision.
That's, yeah, Burger King one right there.
Change language.
And as Jim said, part of this sort of goes somewhat hand in hand with the preservation ordinance. So
Yeah.
if the goal is to provide more historically traditional housing, then maybe this helps that.
Yeah, and I think what we're most interested is the scale of that, is that, there's 3-story, there's 2 3-story, row homes are more consistent with that as a residence.
And you'll see in subsection C, it says the design guidelines for the Westchester Historic District shall be used for the design elements of the buildings. And again, whether that makes sense or doesn't make sense is sort of beyond my realm.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, do you want to just work through area and bulk first?
Sure.
And then, so we're good with that. We're gonna start just kind of working our way through. So it's kind of hard. It's difficult to understand the potentials and how somebody might exploit it. So you look at it and you say, hey, this is what we're writing. Where could it go south? And it's, so I think having a minimum.
Maybe, it would be- I'm sorry, maybe it'd be helpful. Do we have available the sketch that was submitted?
Yes.
Yes.
Maybe it would be helpful to look at that.
Just while we're calling that up, on the definition, it says a residential land development consisting of only, and then it lists a number of different type of dwelling units, and at the end it says or, which, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, that to me means each one of these developments can only include one of the list. And it's not, I would have expected and or. So that it's, because even this sketch, this proposed development has different dwelling units on it. So I would just think it'd be okay to mix them
And that
in one development.
reminds me of something. Our original thought on this was, do you want to require a minimum number of a certain kind of unit and a maximum number? Again, I don't know. That's up to you. So, for example, a minimum number or percentage of single family attached. So you're getting more townhouses rather than triplexes and quadplexes.
Well, I think I'll agree with your comment and with the idea that we're not trying to exclude a specific type. And really at some level, what that mix in uses. So if anybody's not familiar with this particular plan, I'll just run over it really quickly. What's proposed presently on Dean and Price are what we know as a townhome, a single family residence that goes the full height of the building. Behind each unit, there's the ability for 2 cars to park in underneath those units. The homes that you're seeing in the center of the site, I call them duplexes or twins. They're actually 2 units per rectangle there. So there's a unit, a flat stacked over a flat. In this case, it's a story and a half over a story and a half, and the 3 stories there. So within that 3 stories, in that lower level, you'll have 2 garage doors that will allow parking, 2 cars parking for each unit. So each residence still has 2 off-street parking spots. They're stacked in, one's in the garage, one's in the driveway, adjacent to each other. So that first unit will have half that first floor, the front half, and the next floor up, and the following will have the next unit. What you're seeing on those far edges is on the townhomes are some roof decks as well. The circulation driving through there is going to be part of the conversation. But what we
And up here,
right, that circulation's
outlet there.
So all parking and garages are interior to the site. There's a green in the center, adding some open space. The homes are scaled and front all streets parallel with those curb lines. It's general enough. So I think the idea of the mix there allows the developer to provide a mix in offerings from homes that are less than the average market rate as well as above the average market rate. So if they were to build all townhomes, and those might be in excess of $1 million, each one of those, there would be one type of development. By mixing up the offering in there, they're able to get 2 units on the same footprint of 1 unit, which allows those prices just to be split over them. So, and share the cost of the development within that one property.
And I think that goes to my comment about, if that's your goal, then maybe there should be a minimum and a maximum. In other words, if somebody could come in here and do all townhouses for $1 million a piece.
Sure.
And if that's not what you want,
Sure.
then somehow we have to put it in the ordinance.
Well, I mean, parking, on-site parking drives the development. The ability to park each one of these units, is gonna drive the density. It backhandedly, right sizes these developments. So even if we're having two or three is gonna be very difficult to park two cars per unit, unless you set aside some street within the unit, within a development there. So there are those approaches, but it's not, I don't know if we should or shouldn't, maybe that, if somebody else would have a comment on that. I think allowing that mix within there and seeing what pencils, so that it has to make dollars or it doesn't happen, I guess is the,
We're gonna have several discussions on this before it comes up. What you might wanna do is have everybody take notes on what we're talking about adding and go home and actually do some research into what they feel the different ways that you could go about a development to see whether or not there is a need for a maximum as well as a minimum. Even if you want to go just do something as simple as, do you want to add a, on that section 5, we have a minimum setback of 0. We want to have a maximum of 5, or do we want to have a maximum of 10? Do we want to have it's approved, maximum would have to be approved by the council, by the planning commission. However you run it. But there may be different ways that you can address this, and like making that decision now is not a good thing, but
Sure.
getting the information, because this is kind of dropping a bomb on everybody.
Sure. Fair enough. I think it's important. I mean, I don't know how many people spend time looking through developments that are presently exist within the borough and what they do or don't. As an example, here's one that they do or don't like. There's one on the Dean Street that's way out of county. That's very nice. Single right block here. But there's there's examples that are around within the borough that are very successful and they create some really nice spaces. They're inconsistent with how zoning presently lays things out. I think that's what these things are trying to try to address because they are quite successful. I'm just gonna throw one in here. This is on Dean Street. That's inconsistent with the neighborhood, but a really nice offering that's a little more dense.
That's
Bernard. Well, Bernard, that's the problem. I can't find it on Dean. Now, I will fully acknowledge that this one, the issue is parking. This site's maxed out, but it's just that I think different sites provide different opportunities for the developers and the minimum and the maximum, I think the adjacency is one thing that I think makes sense because I think that's adjacent to residential neighborhoods makes some sense to have that adjacency in there. You proposed 40 dwelling units per acre, and that's based on
That's based on
Yield.
sketch, or what they call illustrative plan.
illustrative plan. Illustrative?
I like illustrative.
I like illustrative.
Whatever.
One has.
We'll look it up, get the dictionary.
There you go. There you go.
Anyway, that plan is a little less than 40 units per gross acre. So that's where the 40 comes from.
Okay.
And again, you might say, we don't want that many,
Sure.
or we want more.
But
If you are looking at a 1 acre to 3 acre, 1 acre, 40, 3 acre could be up to close to 120 units, which would be a much larger facility where you could actually play with a whole bunch of different types. On 1 acre, it's going to be hard to go through a whole bunch of different types of housing, quads, triplexes, duplexes, single families. But that bigger one can give you a lot of benefits, so you can have it. That's 40 seems to be a good foundation.
Yeah.
Because you can see how that would work in that plan.
yeah, and I really don't see any 3 acre parcels available.
No, but
Yeah. So, and I think relative to the present comprehensive plan, which calls to increase homeowner occupancy, it's well, this gives an opportunity again, and that's what the intent. The intended market is for homeowner occupied housing. So this quantity of brand new homes within the borough, it's been a while since we've seen something like that for. Trying to think of the last money. This quantity, maybe Shanahan's old property.
Yeah. Like,
Assume, so,
Yeah.
I'm assuming an investor doesn't buy them all.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's,
And on that issue, it may be prudent to look at the properties that are adjacent to the NC 2 and 3 and the CS and see what their gross tract area is, whether this makes sense or not. Whether 3 acres is the right number. People could assemble a tract.
Right,
Right.
that was one of my comments.
They could assemble something, and as long as it ended up, some of it touched the adjacent zoning district, they could do it.
I'd love to hear Alan's comments.
yeah, I have not heard anything from him.
Well, I mean, we haven't opened it up yet, have we?
No. Well, I think we can look down all through these numbers and then decide, I guess, to understand it. But Alan, would you want to speak to this portion?
No, I'm just sort of thinking of a larger picture here that we're feel a little strapped by the requirement for retail. And to use the example that's being cited here, what if we tore down Carlino's, built one of these structures, wouldn't that be a terrible thing? But in reality, we have that requirement. And where's the retail on Mitch's Gym? Doesn't exist. Where's the retail on Burger King?
Mhm.
Doesn't exist, so. I just think we don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater,
Sure.
but I do think that somehow we find a way to make those accommodations where we think they're appropriate, but the borough does.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what I'm trying to.
And I think
Start
that's what I was when I was reading B3, that the tracks must be adjacent to a lot located in these NC2, NC3, NC which is helping keep those in those very, very small areas.
Yeah.
That's not downtown, not that.
I mean, adjacent to a residential zoning area is a good idea, I think. That's giving us that flexibility there. But I do think that maybe we should protect the downtown business district from while they all think their rents are high, they're still probably a lot more money to be made out of if they're converted to residential, I would think. So I think it's something we have to be mindful of.
Mhm.
Is my initial thought.
Yeah, I think, as Mikey had mentioned, the Gay Street and that the open air market, that's been a good success and a big draw for the borough,
Yeah.
especially on those Fridays and Saturdays and places popping pretty good. So I think it's important that we continue to reinforce it. I agree.
And there are parcels that are adjacent to NC or CS that are also would be along the retail overlay district. I'm just looking at that now. So that might be something we want to exclude from this. Is anything within adjacent or bordering the retail overlay district as a means of protecting the downtown retail?
I like it. Anything else?
That's it.
Okay.
I will make one statement in that regard, is that by right, you are allowed in the town center area to do semi-detached, attached, um, either one or two family. By right, you're allowed to build that new. And it specifically states in their definition that all areas of that property are designed exclusively for residential use. So that note that says that you cannot have residential use on the first floor in that area really is negated because you have by right the allowability of building that new building. Now transitioning an older building, that's different. But building a new building, they have by right the right to
So
install
it goes away when you build something new.
when you put in a new building. So if you have let's say you have a lot large enough that you could put up two single semi-detached buildings, you can have them built as residential on the first floor because it's allowed by right in the TC district. There's an argument that can be made either way, but the strongest argument is that because it's allowed by right, that little note at the end of it, it's kind of, they're conflicting, so you'd have to, what the right would override. So that's one of the issues that you're gonna have. It's from the zoning side of it, looking at it. Because that was one of the things that we noted when we were first talking about this, and I sat down with Kristen. She agreed with me that, there's conflict there, and because it's allowed by right, if it's a new construction. So that's why Burger King doesn't have to have residential on the first floor. Because they're in the town center district. And they would be allowed to have that installed because it's by right.
Well, would that be true of the Mitch's Gym area then also? Because
I don't know. I don't know much about it.
it's a new building. But it's HO 60 and it's
But-
required to have retails.
But they have to be, it would have to be.
But you're saying that that really is not true. It's maybe in the ordinance, but it's really not.
There's applications, there's an argument to get around it. And when you see a contradiction like that, first of all, the zoning officer has to make a determination as to
Yeah.
which one takes precedent. And by this regard, I would say that the one that's allowed by right
Yeah,
takes precedent, because you can have something that's allowed by right and then just eliminate it by a small comment at the end of the zoning, because you're creating a conflict. So I don't know Mitch's, I've never seen that before me, so I can't comment on that. But in the case of Burger King, that's why we weren't requiring them to have residential on the first floor,
yeah.
because they're allowed to do these by right currently.
Steve,
Matt, just actually answer my question. The way that this would be currently set up with the adjacent neighborhoods and the town center, how many properties would be that are currently retail, would be susceptible? And Matt, you're saying there's 3?
Oh, no, there's a lot of lots.
A lot.
None of those are necessarily 1 acre, which is the current minimum, but consolidated, they could be turned into 1 acre. But I mean, the likelihood of that, I would say, is low, but given where that is, because it's along Market Street, a couple along Gay, which includes the open air. So there are some.
yeah, I think excluding the retail overlay district makes good sense.
Yes. Yeah, agreed. That's it.
But
I need to see that retail overlay district. Could you pull it up?
Go for it.
where it is there,
It's in the maps.
wonder maps on the bottom.
Yeah, it's on the maps page. Yeah, it's that old,
This section here,
Yeah.
the outlines.
The outlines on the,
I'll bring it out a little bit so you
Yeah.
can see there's glitz cross hatching that's going on.
no, it's just the dark area.
Dark areas.
Oh, the dark area is right here.
Yeah.
So it's along
all
West
these
Gate.
properties, but
But do any of them actually adjacent to here? Because it's
The back end.
yeah, they go
Back
back.
and
Well,
forth.
you don't see the property lines on that map, but they do. Not all of them, but some.
But that excludes a good amount of it, of the town center. Minty,
Yeah.
that answer what you're looking for?
No, yeah, I just wanted to see it.
Yeah, fair enough.
So this section here would be eliminated, section one here would be eliminated. That should be acceptable because that big option would be here.
It's not in the town, is it in the town?
This part is the town center right here.
Yeah.
But this is the retail center here. So it does eliminate some, but not a huge amount.
Even still to make an acre out of those.
Right.
Properties, sure.
Yeah.
It's unlikely, but.
More than a couple.
I mean, the reality of it is, if past precedence is anything, if they wanted to consolidate lots and build a bigger building there. So it's, how about if they do it and they still have the option to build smaller buildings, so it's a funny, I think, from my understanding is we can't stop them.
Well, and just again, 1 acre was just a suggestion.
Sure.
It may not be the right number. And maybe the 3 acres is an acre. I don't know.
Yeah, start somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so then go back to those, ordinance proposed ordinance, design standards. Okay, we're next to the next section. Design standards for unified residential development.
Wait, can we go back? Since we're there, just on the building setback line, I would just make that a front yard or front something, that number 6. So we're consistent with the language in the other tables. Because we have side, rear, we should probably put front there. Just to clarify what number 6 means. Because we call it in the table that we're proposing to extract here, we're calling it building setback line / front yard. I would just be consistent with the language.
I'm just, ask Tom relative to the buildings, because when we're looking at this, it's really a condo association. So some of those units don't face a street or a front yard, so it's, and so when it says building setback line, it's really an envelope that sits inside of the parcel property line or the outside line. Or are we're not looking at building per building setback line. So
Well, I
building
guess
setback,
because-
I guess we're,
We could clarify that by saying something like from an existing dedicated street. Does that make sense?
yeah, that particular parcel has 3 streets.
Not you.
It's not me.
Must be a storm coming.
I know.
For the love of people.
Why aren't we getting this?
They don't like us. They don't
Yeah.
care about.
So,
So yeah, just something to maybe clarify that then. Because not all the fronts of all these buildings will face a primary street.
so there should, I'm just was wondering if it should be a front yard, a side yard, a back. I don't know how.
Well,
other than one
yeah.
building.
The question is, along High Street, Dean Street, and Price Street,
Right,
you would want this to apply
correct.
as a minimum.
Mhm.
So couldn't we say from a dedicated borough street or something?
Yeah, it wouldn't have to, an internal, like driveway.
Yeah, I mean, it falls within. Once you have the parcel and you put your setbacks on it, you have the whole building envelope to locate structures. So it's not, it's really a setback off of the property line or,
So maybe it makes sense to put the sketch up again. But maybe it doesn't.
Well, let me figure out how to do it. It's different. He's the first time Jim has let me run
You doing all right?
run the AV, so. Only been here 62 days.
But he's counting. So I suppose if, let's just assume north is up, which it isn't. So the units that aren't along a street at the bottom, shouldn't they be set back a minimum of some amount?
So I would consider that a side yard.
Right.
And then we have 3 streets, so I consider this property has 3 front yards.
Well, there's actually an alley.
But then you go, well,
Part of it's an alley.
This is an alley here.
sure.
Well, it doesn't
Well,
go all
not
the way.
always.
Well, no,
Just
it's- this is right here.
It takes a turn.
This is a street, this is a street, this is a street. I don't know if this is a dedicated alley or not.
I think it is, but
If it is, then that actually technically falls under the definition of street.
Well, and once we get across the property line, we're into a driveway. So. So, I mean, but I would still consider that a side. I would consider everything that faces the primary streets a street.
Well, these things, it does have something in there that allows for it to be fronting on
Agree.
a green, so you don't have to worry about this having the setback. You know what I mean? Because you can still have the 0 setback, because it's just off of a green, because you are allowing it for it to be on a green. I think there also is something that allows it to be off of a,
that's section C1A.
yeah. So I think we might be looking a little bit too finely at the depth. I like the idea of off of a dedicated street or alley. You know. Or buildings fronting a dedicated street or alley. And then these would be excluded from that because they don't.
Yeah.
These here, this might come to here, but they're not fronting a dedicated street or alley.
Yeah, and we use dedicated street later in the last requirement for stoops and steps, so I think that'd be consistent with the use
Yeah.
of that.
Being consistent to this, to this. That's all.
Should I go back to the,
We can go to the ordinance.
and you wanted to come down here, design.
Correct, to design standards. Unified residential development shall comply with all the requirements in design standards, section 112, 916. Applicants seeking land development approval for a unified residential development shall provide conceptual architectural plans and sufficient documentation to demonstrate compliance with all the said requirements and design standards. The plans and documentation should be submitted with the preliminary land development application. The front facade of all dwelling units shall face and abut a dedicated street, a private green, or private common open space. Everybody okay with that? Garages and parking spaces shall face alleys or private driveways located in the rear of the dwelling. That Market Street development had garages facing Market Street and the alley, but they did it well. But so I'm just bringing that up just to understand that there is,
Oh, that's right.
yeah, I do. I mean, I think in this particular case, I like the idea of making the cars disappear.
Go in the back, yeah.
I guess I was only thinking are also in the sides. I mean, there might be a case in some cases. It's not always in the rear, but maybe in the side
Mhm.
of a dwelling unit that might still work depending on how they're oriented. But I don't think that's a big deal.
It's what zoning hearing board variances are.
Fair enough. Okay.
Aaron needs some more business.
No, I don't.
C, alleys and private driveways serving more than one dwelling unit shall have a minimum of 18 feet in cartway width if one way and 24 feet in width if two way. A minimum right of way width is not required for alleys constructed as part of the unified residential development, and such alleys shall not be dedicated to the borough and shall be maintained by an association of the owners of the dwelling units. So a condo association for those, I think, makes good sense. The width's 18 feet. How wide is your alley back there? You know, or the roadway behind your homes? Do you know? Any ideas?
Which alley are we speaking of?
Hold on a second, let me get back to the drawing.
Yeah, but either one of them.
The ones I call one right behind my house is 15
It's coming up.
Okay.
approximately, and then the one heading towards the Burger King is wider, and then it becomes narrow as it turns the corner going towards Price. So it's probably 30 feet. You know, looking at the Burger King, and then it narrows as it turns the corner.
Okay. You can put Google Maps up. It's right up there on that, right? Tab all the way to the upper right.
And
fix that
just,
in.
You do it.
by the way, we have commentary from the potential developer, but I guess we don't want to get to that now.
We'll get to it. Are these, any of these one-way, two-way? What's going on?
No, but this go around, I was actually promoting that it's entertaining. Change those not necessary.
They're two-way, but you can't actually pass
Right.
a car both ways on an alley or.
Well, this section here from the on the drawing, a section of this is going to be removed to make this area wider, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So this area will be widened to allow for better turning into the,
And allow the relief of that traffic turning off from Price.
correct.
Yeah, right now, I think there's a telephone over there. So they're- On the map, it shows like 10 feet, but it's a little wider than that at the entrance. But then it does spread out, like you said. So we, in that sketch plan, what we would have to do is remove the the relocate the pole and make it wider.
Yeah. And actually go in here. Whoa. Overshot it. That's not helpful. Okay.
And that one side, if you marked off as it were, parking for those townhouses.
So this side,
Yellow lined out, parking on,
okay, so the alley's up from here to here, and then this is Laos parking.
that is parking for the dwellings to the right.
Okay.
Then, which is the one behind my house, is, and I call it
Clinton here. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure, well, most of us have alleys behind our houses. It's just, they're usually about 10, 12 feet wide and, as we're navigating, if somebody's coming the other way, we just pull over into someone's driveway and allow passing. Not that that's a standard. I'm just saying there's a,
Is that a private drive right there? Adele, is that a private or is that a?
I think that's
No.
borough.
No,
And it's out. Well, that might have been, that might be gone by now.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think 24 feet is a full roadway. You, Pete, comment?
I mean, we looked at this, the saldo that talks about, there's a section in the saldo where it talks about 10 feet. As a design, I guess that would be I don't know, it's in the saldo, I'm not exactly sure where. But I mean, what we drew there is 18 feet. It's in that middle section. There's parts that get, they could be a little wider when you drive in, but we were trying to leave room for, you know, there's like 5 or 8 feet behind the garages where you put some plantings and stuff. So we would rather not call that alleyway, keep it at 18 feet.
And it's 18 feet plus there's driveway aprons on both sides.
Oh, yeah.
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 And where on Dean and Price, there's space, the cars are parked in the garages, but then there's also space in the garages.
Map going like that.
That's just like transitional space. And you're not parking, it's not meant to park a car, it's just place for landscaping.
Pete's comment was the Saldo says private streets have to have 10 feet per lane. And then according to this comment, it says propose 16 feet one way and 20 feet two way. That's Pete's suggestion. But yeah, I think it's just a practical matter. How much do you need for two cars to pass if it's two way? I mean, I don't know what that is.
Comments, anybody?
I think, the example that you talked about with Matt and I do every day, pulling over in the alley. If you're in one of those developments like that, you don't want to have to do that. You want to be able to pass. Anyway, and what would the minimum be? Would it be 16? Would it be 20 or 24?
So the Saldo says a common driveway is defined by this chapter shall be of sufficient width in the opinion of the borough engineer to provide safe passage of two vehicles. Or shall have a sufficient number of pullover areas to provide safe passages of two vehicles. So let's just ask the borough engineer.
Yeah.
And they'll tell us.
We have not sent this to anybody to review.
Right. I feel like we're gonna bat it around and
Yeah,
they can just tell us.
we need a Pannoni opinion.
Yeah, if you're driving around in there, you're exiting or you're entering, you don't want to have to pull over. You would just-
Sure. I mean, there's traffic calming advantages to enclosing pieces, and I think when it's not direct enough, it's not going to be a cut through. There's no savings of time for someone who doesn't live there. So it's going to be primarily the neighbors with neighbors. There will be some delivery, I'm assuming, through there. Pizza, Domino's, whatever, they drive fast. But anyway, there will be some people not as familiar, but I think we've heard previously those corners and stuff like that, you want to keep, it's probably gonna turn into a big play area and hangout area
sure
for
it will.
everybody. And that's where it becomes a little.
Yes.
Coast.
So the section that our civil referred to is 97-27 C parentheses 1. Table for private streets require 10-foot building. That's what he was referring.
I was reading from driveways, but
So I
which is the
think
next
we're looking at
section
this as a
down.
private driveway, so.
Okay.
Okay, dwelling units, D, dwelling units, shall be a minimum 15 feet and maximum 20 feet from the sidewall. I think the maximum 20 feet is bad. I'd rather go, 24 feet to the center line. You're putting two cars next to each other, just as a max, but that's just
Take
me.
the number.
Yeah.
And Pete does say 24, so.
Oh, he does.
Yeah.
Those are designed at 20, those are 24-foot wide, the
Sure.
ones that are in the middle.
Uh-huh.
And then the townhomes are 20 feet wide.
Okay. Yeah, I think 15 to 24. So if you can get a single car garage and then a 2-car garage, I think that's somewhere in between. It's like having a parking spot. There's a diminishing return at some point. You're either you can get 2 in or 1 in, or Nicole, you were.
Six foot, something, 72 is 6.
6, 7,
72.
6, 7.
6 foot. Yeah, 6, 7.
Big.
Yeah, it can make it past 18. It's just.
Shopping.
I wouldn't go
during
fast.
meetings.
Yeah, look at the.
Bigger car.
Yeah, the bigger car is fair enough. But I think we're gonna get our input from that, Pannoni, then.
You shouldn't measure off a Ford LTD.
Okay, E, the design guidelines for the Westchester Historic District, July 2002, as amended from time to time, shall be used for the design elements of the building, structures, and overall development, including but not limited to massing, scale, proportion, rhythm, building materials, roofs, windows, and streetscapes. To the extent the design guidelines may be inconsistent with or contrary to the requirements of this section, 112.916, the requirements in section 112.916 shall prevail. Lawyer speak. So I think,
It's belt suspended.
I think it's consistent with what we're looking for, proportions and rhythms and, what else to say about that one?
The only, and I think I mentioned, I don't know how much wiggle room there is in the design guidelines. For example, but the design guidelines prohibit vinyl siding.
Well, I'm thinking we want to prohibit vinyl siding.
Well, I know, and that's why I think we need to be careful about saying you'll comply with the design guidelines.
Mhm.
We better make sure we know what's in there, where if you have a different vision for what these units should be, then we have to be more specific.
Well, and I think that's,
Including roofs, again, I'm not familiar enough with design guidelines, but I'm not familiar with them at all.
Sure.
So for example, does it permit asphalt shingles? You want to I don't know.
yeah, I mean, this is sort of where that preservation ordinance overlaps, because we're looking to promote durable, sustainable material. When I say that, I mean something that we put in place, and it's 100 years from now, someone's just gutting out that shell and rebuilding it inside, that it's still an actual contributing resource to the borough, so that we're not building something that in 30 years from now, you're going, it should probably have been torn down 10 years ago. It's just to do something that is more consistent with a lot of those homes, 1910s, 20s, 30s that we see in the borough that are very worthwhile in restoring.
I mean, I don't think, as someone said, I don't think you're gonna resolve it tonight, but
Right.
if that's what you want, and I certainly respect that, then we better make it specific. Unless the design guidelines make it specific. And I see things in there, like, well, should is mandatory,
Mhm.
but there are other things. It's not supposed to exactly look like the historic structure.
Right.
When under new construction, for example. So again,
Yeah, I think being,
I'm sorry. go ahead.
oh, sorry. Yeah, being consistent with the scale and rhythms and proportions of historic structures. And then looking at, we can certainly add or note specific materials, real materials, stone, brick, that kind of stuff.
So I think the positive here is that we lost all design opportunities in Mitch's and Burger King and because it was built into the regulations that they needed to pass the hard design guidelines, but they didn't. There was no mechanism, and there was controversy about that. So this, I think, clarifies it. Now we have hired a borough architect, so we could put them in. Now we have a way. We've actually solved the problem. It's miraculous, but so we could get something here. This would be.
Yeah, to me, this is what we should be referencing. Those are our guidelines. Now the preservation ordinance I'm looking at, might go a little further, but there's a reason for that. So for me, as long as we have a mechanism for the architect to review it,
Yeah.
that's what we should state. I was fine with that
Yeah.
section.
You might want to put something in there that the planning commission can request a review by the architect, because right now, the only time they're compelled to do it is inside of the downtown historic district. Council has in the past asked for that architect to review things and to submit recommendations in regards to that. So you might want to add something to that actually gives you the permission to request that these plans be reviewed by the
Was, yeah, was that state, because that requirements, was that just in the height overlay districts where we added that then?
Yes.
Okay, so that we would, yeah, then I would agree with that. We would add the same requirement to this. Yeah.
Agreed.
I just met with the harbor architect, we were going over some changes she wants to see in the.
Right, right.
Good. Very good. Two, all preliminary land development plans shall be accompanied by a landscape plan, which shall be approved by council as part of the land development decision. I 100% agree with that one. It amazes me, we saw it in zoning hearing board last night, that the landscape, with color renderings, which green areas and open areas are quickly identifiable. Something like this, at least you can say, hey, probably brick sidewalks, probably a pavement back there.
And they have trees.
And sharp trees. So yeah, I'm for that, so I think.
Sorry, that's not
All right, item 3, parking shall be provided as follows. 2 off-street parking spaces shall be provided for each dwelling unit. 1 of which shall be located inside a garage attached to the dwelling unit, and 1 of which shall be located directly adjacent to the dwelling unit that the space serves. Parking spaces may be stacked behind garages or other parking spaces.
And there is a definition of stacked. I think it's parking comma stacked already in the zoning rules.
My initial comment was that it should say at least one of which shall be located inside a garage. Because this, the way it's written, 1 is in a garage and 1 must be outside a garage, which
Right.
doesn't make any sense. So
I agree with that.
I agree.
And then should we note that they're both spots are for the same resident when you're stacking? It doesn't, just says parking spaces should maybe stack behind garages or other parking spaces, but we're clearly.
You
it's
gotta knock on your neighbor's door,
Right.
I gotta get out.
It's just that it should not require any coordination other than family members. Where you're taking the car that's parked behind.
and if we put at least one of which shall be located inside a garage, then the second one be, and one of which may be located directly adjacent, because it shouldn't be shall, because then you're requiring 3 essentially.
I like it. Tom didn't mean to use the word shall. May.
Well, we're changing. It was 2 shalls, now it's shall. Shall and may.
Okay. All right,
So we removed section 5, so there's nothing wrong.
remove section 5, that's a separate, will be a separate.
And section 6 and section 7 are just there to protect in case something is disputed or found unconstitutional or not correct, so it doesn't get rid of everything else.
Right.
Those are gonna go on every year.
The severability clause. right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we put that in everything. Fortunately, we don't usually have to test it.
Yeah.
Sure. I think overall, Tom, it's very consistent with what the planning commission is looking to see new developments.
I have a question, because we're also going to review this preservation ordinance. The Unified Residential Development Ordinance says something to the effect that new 112-916 prevails over the other standards. But I think looking at the proposed preservation overlay, there could be some overlapping lots, properties. And so we might have to just discuss which one does the URD prevail over the preservation overlay or vice versa. It's just something I think, I haven't mapped these out. I'm just looking at the preservation versus the HARB overlay now. Just something to consider. Because there's going to be slightly more prescriptive. They're very similar, some of the requirements, but some of them are a little more prescriptive in the preservation overlay, the proposed one. So as we go forward with both of these, we might want to just consider if there's overlap and which one prevails in those areas.
And I guess it's some of that may be the developer and which one they're just doing, I guess. when they think they're.
Maybe, maybe we want to leave, I don't know, if we just want to consider that overlap.
Because town center requirements are still town center requirements. We didn't change any of those, right? It's a new use within town center. Okay. So. Since we have so many neighbors, are there any comments or questions of what you have seen or reviewed? Okay.
I like to be paying attention to these. That's super important.
Mhm.
Much appreciated.
Thank you. Hi, CJ.
I feel a little disadvantaged and I won't make you suffer from it because I just walked in, so I don't know what happened. But I wondered, since Tom's here, since Tom's here, where are we with this, Tom, procedurally? That's the thing that maybe I would like to know going forward.
Where are we with
With
what?
either the ordinances or the plan that I'm looking at on the screen.
Well, we drafted an ordinance to try to, for lack of a better word, enable this plan. And that's what the planning commission has been discussing tonight. And we would call it a unified residential development, which is a defined term. And it's not going to be decided this evening. I think Jim said that it would take more than one meeting to go over the potential requirements of a unified residential.
So these are just discussions relative to a zoning change.
It's not really a zoning change. It would remain town center, but it would be another permitted use, a unified residential development, which
Maybe new
would,
sections, right?
pardon?
New sections within.
Right, there would be design standards. It would be a text change to the zoning ordinance. And it would be permitted by right. Subject to complying with all the standards, of course.
And this is our first discussion about that.
And there's nothing formal with a clock or anything like that, is that the idea?
No,
Correct.
nothing,
Okay.
Correct.
right. And it originated with Brian Nagel at the request of Pete, drafted some changes to the ordinance. And when our office looked at it, in other words, it was changing specific setback requirements to make this work without creating a new development use. And when we looked at it, we thought it makes more sense to just create a new use with specific standards. Not saying either one is right, but
So what you see and they are able to download online is the first draft, that initial draft that we've kind of reviewed and just to try to understand what's in there and how basically it backs its way into graphically that development. And so it's kind of a result of which one came first, but it makes that development permissible or allowed by right. And I think we've talked previously at a lot of our meetings where a lot of the stuff individuals like around the borough, it's not even allowed by zoning anymore. So a lot of the scales and developments and minimums and stuff are just not even allowed. So we're just trying to start creating those pockets again, which is again, both this ordinance as well as the preservation ordinances. That's the goal of those two.
so just for my purposes, I won't make any changes at this point. Does that make sense until we get to the final chapter, so
Well,
to speak?
Well, the other thing is, if you don't mind,
Except for taking out section 5. I'm
we're
going
gonna
to
take out
draft a
section
separate
5, but I
ordinance.
think there were some comments and clarifications that Matt has taken
Right.
note of. Can we forward those to you and incorporate those?
Sure.
Okay. So, and
I think
then,
I took notes, but that's
Okay.
okay. Yeah, minimum and things like that.
Sure.
Right.
yes.
Yeah, understood.
Consistency of wording is Matt's concern.
One of them. The one thing we didn't resolve is the building setback lines. How we're going to word those or
We're
address
gonna
those.
word them. And
Come up with that.
And what I was saying on that, Tom, was, and I'm gonna go ahead and mention section 5, even though we're removing it. That refers to a front yard, a side yard, and a rear yard. Where in the bulk area regulations on section 4B, it's called a building setback line, but, and then, I just want to be more consistent with the starting point with that.
Yeah, that could be a mistake on my part. Understood. So you want it to be front, rear, front, side, and rear.
Just to be consistent,
Understood.
and it falls under those, sometimes it's a property like this where there's actually 3 fronts. So it's a funny,
I had one question going back to section B, 4B. This is the last item we didn't talk about, but I was wondering what the basis for that was. If that's the uncovered stoops and steps may project a maximum of 5 feet into the right of way. Is that based on, is this a common, is that something that's common across the borough? Or were you thinking of specific neighborhoods, streets?
Well, somebody else would have to speak to that.
Yeah,
I think.
I didn't know where.
I don't know if it's common, but I think it does exist in the borough. I think that recent development where Yarnell used to be, we discovered that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's 210, 214 West
Right.
I think-
Washington. It is not common, but it is not infrequent. But the best way to put it.
And a lot of the historic streets have it. I don't know about 5, but you see 3, right? You know, whatever your required landing
Yeah.
dimensions would be, but you see that all along Darlington and New. And if you actually look at the right of way, those are extending into that. And that's common in Philadelphia, you know, if you go down to like the Old Town District.
And the number 5 was the number that was put in there because of some of the comments that were made. And that could be a discussion that you have as to whether it's 3 or whether it's 5, whether it's 4, whether it's 6, whether it's 150, whatever it is.
And I heard Darlington mentioned before, and I'm familiar with it, and I think those steps are in the right of way.
Yes,
That's correct.
Yeah.
correct. And I think what's important is that we're looking back at from the other side, looking from the street side. So we're looking at enough space, even if those stoops go in, that there's adequate clearance to have an accessible route through there. Yes, CJ.
I'm gonna do this right to be sitting next to me here, but would it be possible to actually draw the details on the 3 streets to show us what the dimensions would be, assuming a 5-foot stoop and steps or something like that? Just to know what the actual real numbers are. That's kind of a concept, but the sketch.
I mean, we could show some, the survey shows.
Right, just blow it up a little bit or something, even if it's just, done graphically, not even redraw it.
Yeah, I think some of those landing steps are actually hugging the building to sort of parallel. So I don't even know that 4 to 5 feet, maybe that you may be 4 feet or 3.5 or something.
Yeah, and it says maximum of 5. I brought it up just because I wanted to make sure we're okay with maximum of 5.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We really got to look.
To take a look at it.
Make a better judgment.
I agree.
And I would not want to pinch down with that 5, any areas that you can't pass.
I mean, I think
Wheelchair,
if
say,
we
for
just blew up the survey, it shows the property line and the width of the sidewalks.
And where the curves are and
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
So we can assume it on that, but we submitted that last week, and I can send it through again.
Yeah, I think just making it finite, relative to the new provision that you're proposing.
Yeah, we have the design, it's just when if you walk out the front door, you're gonna be in the sidewalk. And there's usually some steps and there's so, which we think makes very good development in the center, but that's why it calls for that.
And
And we actually showed some planners on there too, so you could have some plans. That landing that could have steps. So we just have to design it.
And this is part of the problem of trying to apply this to other sites.
Sure.
5 feet might be too much.
Well, that's why I say maybe we add the
That's
other
right.
side and say you can't reduce the sidewalk more than.
Right. And it has to have a minimum sidewalk clearance of X.
Because that present development in Washington, on West Washington Street, you're weaving, between stoops and, at first I wasn't sure if I liked it or not liked it, but it adds a lot of.
Well, but I do think that, I mean, Tom, you're making great points, but on the other hand, like, there are real numbers to this as well. There are code requirements for what that stoop's gonna be. There are code requirements for ADA accessibility on a sidewalk. So to some extent, I think we could put a number on there fairly confidently and say that this is a uniform number that we could use elsewhere. You know, maybe that's 4 feet. That way you get enough of a landing and a door clearance, enough of a little area for a planter. But obviously the caveat would be you can't make this sidewalk non-accessible, right? And that the numbers at that scale, there is not that much variation.
Yeah.
And so maybe 4, not 5. And like my tendency would say 4, but sometimes you see, I think that it's a beautiful engagement with the public realm, these steps, and you get the stairs coming down, you have the plants, and you see it in the older parts of town, right next to the project you just mentioned, I say Yarnell's, but I can't remember the actual address, but the neighbors, you see that with the neighbors, this, you know, beautiful precedent of, you know, that engagement with the public realm.
Yeah.
Well, Minor Street, that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Certainly.
That I did review the ordinance during the week, and the one thing I think I have to admit I'm very opposed to is killing the existing area and bulk regulations in town center and replacing them with this. Because if this development, or not to wish any harm, Pete, but if you guys went away for some reason, somebody else could come in, each new area bulk, and go back to the apartment. And I think that's not what everybody's thinking should be happening. I mean, both sections could be in, it's just the new stuff could be tied to the new use.
But that actually, I think is what's
I
happening.
think
We're
that
not
was the
killing-
intent, Tom.
We're not killing the original town center dimensions. We're actually creating new bulk regulations for this specific use.
Correct,
It
but
doesn't say that.
I think what CJ is saying,
Is section 5?
yes, that table was meant to replace the existing
Right.
table. And the only differences are the,
Setback.
of the front yard and the side.
And that's.
Right now, it's match existing.
Well,
Adjacent.
there's two different things. Right now, there's a build to on the front, and on the sides, it's basically you're mirroring or matching your neighbor's property. So if somebody's off 10 feet, you're off 10 feet. If they're off 5 feet, you're off 5 feet, which for town center is not necessarily what we're looking for. We want to allow, so we're reverting back to the previous requirements, which was 0 foot setback, 0 foot side yard. And let
You knew you.
Yeah, for the town center
whole
period.
town center. But
Yeah,
that was a separate,
that's
that
a
was a
separate ordinance.
separate ordinance. Now it happens to be placed in here, but that was intended to establish criteria that was able to be understood by applicants, the borough, whoever's reviewing it, that's more consistent.
You know, I'm in agreement with that, because we talked about it.
Sure.
But are we saying that we're gonna replace it?
We've already made that recommendation. It's going to be drafted up and move forward. So we've already made the recommendation to go to a 0 foot setback and a 0 foot side yard.
We have not had the public hearing on it yet, so you get an opportunity to
Well,
speak at that.
basically, you know, Tom, you get legal about it. You're winning the Commonwealth Court argument for them by doing that. All they have to do is come back and refile the plan with your new ordinance or your new table. And you're making the judge's decisions for them. I don't think our group is gonna be in favor of that. So you might want to consider what you're doing.
Well, we've spent several months considering what
I
we're
think-
doing. Yeah.
But it happens to be the reality of where it is.
Sure.
What you're doing is within a context.
Sure, I agree. And also understanding some of the previous developments and some of the existing ones that have been approved and just haven't been built yet, and the conditions that are adjacent to those, so.
Jim,
Yes.
you know that, did the recommendation include the verbiage regarding, larger structures needing this?
Yes.
Back, okay,
10 foot.
It included,
which would be the HO 60.
But that's an
correct?
HO over. Yeah,
Right,
it's the
I'm just
height overlay
thinking
on that.
about,
There were three things in there specifically. We had one for the side yard, one for the front built setback, and then the change to the HO 60.
yeah, just as clarification, CJ, on height overlay district, we were requiring an additional 10 foot. So a setback of 10 foot back from the right of way for if you were looking to go higher than a zoning. So if you were taking advantage of the HO 60 or HO 75, you'd step back 10 feet.
Right, but not in this.
that is correct.
Not correct.
So I guess just for my own clarification, one of the arguments, or is it the main argument, CJ, of your group, that the match existing is the issue? Match existing adjacent setbacks is the main issue?
Well, that's.
One of. Okay, right, but that, I guess I didn't think that was the only issue.
It's not.
Okay.
But it is a double-edged sword, like, to me, you guys changed the parking too.
Right.
So somebody refiling.
Right.
Would have to deal with the new parking, so.
Yeah.
It is a bit of a double-edged sword, but, I mean.
Well, things take so long to do anything, so yeah. Understood.
Any other comments, CJ? You're welcome. Fix it. Very good. Daryl, nothing? All right. Nicole? Okay, fair enough. All right. Well, I think that's, we're gonna let that one, we'll get you the, guess those comments back on it.
Okay, thank you.
That's it. All right, let's move back. So, it's not the agenda. That's not the agenda. Just gonna go here. Thomas, a couple of things. Thanks for making it over. I know you're busy.
Well,
So I guess two different things. Under reports, I wanted to add Harb, like if you
Perfect.
could get
Yep.
us up on Harb.
and I try to make a point to call, Carol once a month for that.
Okay, all right.
Usually there's nothing, that she says, I should pass on, but just kind of keeping tabs on it. But-
All right, terrific. And then we'll go back to old business, which is preservation ordinance. So the preservation ordinance, did you have a copy of that?
You should.
Yep.
Okay.
This is basically what you had given me.
Yeah.
And I just kind of ripped off Tom and Tom's format and just try to put it more into that format.
Yeah.
And there were a couple of things that I
Hey, it's
did.
taking away my job.
Well, no, I wanted them to see, kind of get more of a filled out version of it. There were a couple of things that I did add that I thought might be, you could discuss, and you might say no, they're crap and throw them away, and that's fine. I understand that. I have no problem with that. But that's just, the idea was just to give you more of what it would look like as it's not a complete one and it's not written correctly because you're gonna keep that job. But it's just to give you an idea what this will look like.
I think something like this that provides some structure that we
Yeah.
can comment on is very helpful. So I think this again is new to us right now, so we'll.
Should we spend some time with it and discuss it at the voting, or do you want to look at this now?
What I was gonna say is there's no attachment here, so we can't.
No, I didn't get it done in
Okay.
time to get
I
it.
guess
I had to do
the,
this Saturday, couldn't do it Friday. So I came in on Saturday. Like this.
Thank you. I'm really looking forward to looking through it.
yeah, I'd like to take time to review it. Has anybody had an opportunity? Did you review while we're sitting here? Any comments on this? Preservation.
I will say on the second page, there's three things, that I added under general regulations. Like I said, that you can just slice them out if you don't feel that they really fill into what you're doing. I thought they might be salient points, but it's up to you guys to make a
Okay.
determination on. But those are the only things added. The only other thing I thought you might want to do, and Tom can tell me as to whether or not this is something that's allowed. I had talked to a couple of people about doing kind of what's called a floating overlay. To where it's something where at the discretion of the planning commission, they may be able to apply things within a certain district.
Okay.
Or certain area, or be allowed certain zoning areas. I don't know if that would apply here or not, but I want you to kind of think of it. I gave an example of a town I worked in Maryland, where they had a community development, which if they met certain
Thank you,
criteria,
guys.
they were allowed to use this, to make a development in certain areas. And it was completely approved, whether or not they could even try to do it was approved by the planning commission. Still went through all of the stuff that you went through, the recommendation to the council and so forth. But it gave you a little bit more control on some of the finer details, like how to apply some of the, you could put in there that you have the ability to approve certain design criteria. Like however it goes, but the people can ask for waivers in certain design criteria, but they have to meet certain standards. So I didn't know if that was something you might want to think about doing this because it covers such a vast area.
Sure.
Town, or borough. It's just an idea. And I didn't put any of that language in here. I can get you some more language if you need to look at it. And Tom would have to approve any of that language, obviously. But it's just an idea that you may want to think about as you're going through this.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is, if I looked up floating overlay district, is that something I'll be able to understand better how or where that might apply?
Well, my initial reaction is,
No, don't do it.
we're not Maryland. But
Well, we
we
also-
also, ordinances have to be objective.
Yeah.
You can't really leave discretion to the planning commission or the zoning officer. or
We
anybody
did do
else.
this in Millville also.
Makes me think of a little bit of like a PUD or
Like
a
it's based
CND or
kind
a
of on the
SPUD.
PND, where
Yeah.
you're gonna have it as a.
And those are, you find those all across the
Yes,
country in
and
every
it's kind of
state.
based off of that.
Yeah.
But like I said, that may not fit here, and obviously
Sure.
it has to run and pass the muster with Tom and Kristen, but it's just an idea that was out there that I've dealt with in other areas, in Pennsylvania and in Maryland. No, I did not get it.
Yeah, and somebody can send me a copy.
I will email it from them.
So same.
I figure we'll get electronic
This
version.
one, I got it on my computer right here. Sorry, Tom, I.
That's fine. I got plenty of this.
Okay, well, I think we'll take the week and discuss it again next week. But I think, I appreciate the fact that you put this
Yeah,
work into
very
this
helpful,
and put it into a format that it's a fantastic site.
It's gonna be similar, not exactly
Hey,
as good as
comment.
Tom can do, because I don't do this every day. But I kind of just stole his work and.
It's a great,
passed it on.
it's a great
That's what we do too. We borrow
Everybody
things.
does.
sample.
I'm giving you credit. I'm
There you
not
go.
sending credit for it.
Okay, other business. I'm gonna tell you, may have heard earlier, but Alex Katz has resigned or stepped down. I think it was just at this point in his life, a little too much on his plate. I think everybody can kind of understand, but so he's stepping away. So we'll be looking for any qualified individuals that are interested in committing some time and effort into. I think several people have mentioned people's, so
And where could we send them?
we can send them to Aaron.
Okay.
That likes them. Maybe there's potential to encourage them to apply again.
Yeah, I think I've heard a couple of very, very good qualified individuals, so I think we open it back up again and we see what we have.
You can send them to me and I'll get them to Dana. Dana is the one who would handle any of that vetting and.
Okay.
Doing all the stuff that needs to be done, but as a focal point, I can be a facilitator for you.
Perfect. Thank you.
I forget if I copied Dana or just you on that one.
Yeah, I think an invitation from Dana would be, and I watched the interviews and I thought there were Good, Paul,
That
I
was
think,
something I need to check with you.
so we just,
You're
yeah.
re-upping next year.
I'm sorry?
You're re-upping next year, right? You're staying.
Yes,
for next
yes,
year.
yeah.
He has a
Dana-
life
Dana told
sentence.
me-
He actually was back on the lead when that led them.
Dana told me I had to find that out today and you could report back to him, so.
No, but what I'm saying is, I think rather than just open them up, which we should do to the public, definitely, but I'm just saying, if you hear from the borough, there's another opening in the planning commission that they don't already interviewed, invite them to come back to interview again. I think that's, you probably stand a good chance of getting somebody who's interested in doing this, so we don't have, it's sitting open for a long time.
And then,
Speak to Dana about it tomorrow.
yeah, and then the other thing is, I know Quinty and myself signed up for some of the courses, but just a reminder that there's some courses on, I think it was Saldo and community planning offered by Chester County Planning Commission. They were good courses, so they're still on.
Bill just checking in to see if we're still here.
We are still here. So anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and move to adjourn.
Second.
Meeting is done. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
How about our-
Should I come back next week or?
Yes, I think you should.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Planning commission members, I just wanted to say, sorry, again, I made a mistake back in June with my schedule. I pulled these meetings off and, I've been playing catch up. I double booked